Hello. That was muted. Hello. That was better. How's everyone's weekend going? Good. Well, thank you so much for joining us here at the live stage, MCM London 2019, it being October. My name's Johnny Chiodini. I work for a website called Dicebreaker. I also run a D&D series called the Oxventure for 2 channels, Outside Xbox and Outside Extra. But today, I'm very pleased to welcome the Rollover and Die team. Please give them a very warm round of applause.
Hello. Thank you.
These happen to be some of the people who make this show possible, but they also happen to be massive D&D fans and have their own series. Raise your hand if you're familiar with their work.
All right.
All right, a few hands in the crowd. For those who aren't familiar, that's it, get cozy. That's what this show's all about, I assume. If you could just introduce yourselves and also maybe tell us what your role is in Rollover and Die, which I have to say is one of like the best, edgiest campaign names I've ever heard. Apart from, what you nearly called it Crit the Bed, didn't you?
That's correct, yeah.
Which is also pretty good. But yeah, if you could just tell us a bit about yourselves and what you do.
I'm Khalil. So for MCM, I'm the marketing manager, but for Rollover Die, I play as Chad, who is a very buff, very dumb lizard folk. He's also a wizard. It doesn't really add up, but make it work.
My name's Tim. I'm the DM for Rollover and Die, so it's my job to corral these maniacs.
I'm Annie. I'm content manager here, and I have to remember who I play. It's been a hectic week. I'm Mike. I'm a changeling sorcerer, and I smile like a maniac.
I'm Josh. I'm the event manager for MCM London, and in the campaign, I play a furbolg who likes to cry, throw up, and generally just be a little bit haphazard.
I'm Alice. I work on marketing and video for MCM, and my character is a badass fallen angel paladin Azamar.
And I think I think I just saw Ellie poke her head through the curtain. I don't know if she's...
We have a bit.
Maybe we'll be joined by the final member of the Rollover and Die team. Maybe we won't.
Pep, where are you?
So how exactly did the whole campaign come together? At what point did you decide we should all cram ourselves into an unfeasibly small room and start playing D&D on camera?
Well, I think it came about was that we were playing campaigns on a Wednesday evening anyway, and we thought, how hard could it be just to cram ourselves into a tiny room and film it on a weekly basis? But yeah, so we kind of play in the office or around my house. That's pretty much where it stemmed from, really.
And how easy was it to translate from what you expected to be like, this will be a piece of piss? How was that for you when you first started out?
Yeah, it was quite daunting. So I thought, writing my own campaign, world building it for like a weekly show. It's only an hour at a time. Yeah, that's no problem at all. Don't do it. Do not do that, unless you don't like Steve.
It's also worth noting that our campaign that we're playing is completely original from the brain of Tim, so he's playing himself down a little bit, but he has committed himself fully to creating this world that we're in, and it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. Ridiculous, but phenomenal. It's really good.
It's one of those things where you've got somebody that's, like a school trip when someone's holding a big banner or something where you follow everyone. That's Tim. We don't follow him. He will set aside a story, and he doesn't want to plan too far ahead. And what he wants us to sort of, tell our own story, and we do. And we sort of kill a lot of people. Parter pukes and cries after every killing.
We don't.
But it all comes out of this crazy man's head.
So yeah, I guess tell us a bit about the story. What are you supposed to have been doing?
We have no idea.
Did we do it?
Well, then what have you actually been doing?
The end of the world is coming, and my character has a literal countdown on her arm, but we manage to forget it almost every episode and get distracted by quests to find out what happened to the mushroom delivery, and just basically literally anything that we can do other than save the world.
We get distracted by bees, pianos,
Dogs.
mushrooms, talking dogs.
Just generally everything that is not campaign. Yeah.
Johnny, can you tell us in the audience is there a way that you should be playing D&D?
I don't know. I mean, the campaign I run, they very rarely stay anywhere near the rails as it is. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about D&D personally, is that it's such a personal adventure that the players around the table can really bring to life. And they can take it in any direction they want. Literally any direction. And part of the fun of playing and being a GM, I think, is just trying to hold on. And just seeing where you end up and being like, oh, we have forgotten about the literal end of the world. But it's all right, because at least we found these mushrooms, and the bees have had a good feed. Like, there's something magical about that kind of collaborative storytelling that you don't get in day-to-day life. Although I have to say, forgetting there's a countdown on your arm, it sounds like Donnie Darko woke up and just went skateboarding. It's like, yeah, I wonder what those are. Just did a kickflip off a rabbit. It's bizarre. So what's the worst thing each of your characters has done? Because I'm not going to lie, I've hung out with you a bit when you're in character, and you're an interesting bunch.
We're kind of mean. I think we try to be the good guys for the most part. It doesn't really work out ever.
We're the best guys.
We're the best guys.
Yeah.
I think it's a perfect case of you walk around thinking you're the good guys. Truth is probably you're not, and you don't realise it. Like, talking about Parter, he's an earth lover, peacekeeper, wants to really do good. Truth is, I've probably murdered more people than anybody in this room.
Yeah. And puked most than anybody in this game as well.
I can't speak for the worst thing that my character's ever done because I'm an actual angel, but this guy, I told him to ask a woman about her murdered husband and comfort her, and he read that as,
I'm gonna come for you.
and she freaked out, and we became suspect number one for said murder. So, yeah, these guys are a liability.
And about 5 minutes after that, I then murdered somebody that was just mean to me by accident.
They weren't really that mean to you either. They were kind of just there.
And he's supposed to be the pacifist, so.
It's always the quiet ones. In the Oxventure, there's a half-elf druid called Merylwen who just killed she's a wood elf, sorry, not a half-elf. She's killed more than anyone else, including, like, by making a meat grinder. It was disgusting and horrible. And it was one of those moments for me, at least, as a GM, and Tim, I don't know if you want to chip in on this, where I just sat around looking at these people who are my friends and are really lovely, creative individuals, but I was thinking, do I know any of these people at all? Like, how do they often surprise you with just how dark they can take your lovely little campaigns?
So I've been a bit desensitized over the years, like, to that kind of thing in various other campaigns, but there have, to my recollection, been 2 instances where I've had to literally just stop in my tracks and think, I was not expecting you guys to do that. I'm genuinely quite shocked. In the best possible way, but yeah, not what I was expecting at all.
And what about, turning the tables sort of on them? Have there been any points where, you know, everyone feels like the floor has completely dropped out from under them and it's gone in a way they just sort of didn't expect? What are you proudest of? What's the worst thing you've done to them?
Well, I was thinking, when you were asking them what the worst thing their characters have done, and I was trying to think up, I don't think anything matches, considering I'm supposed to be playing the bad guys, doesn't quite match their level of, like, evil and complete disregard for the laws and rules of society. One instance came to mind was, if you look at it objectively, obviously there's a certain amount of sort of metagaming with it, because, you know, you walk into a place and there's some creepy people sitting in a creepy house. You're like, oh, they're definitely bad guys, and just kick the door and look and just murder the hell out of them. But when you think of it, like, objectively, they came to this house on a farm, looked in the window, saw a family of 4 having what looked like dinner. But because they knew they were going to this farm because, like, there were potential zombies around, they're like, oh, this must be the zombies. Kick the door in, like, just start punching people in the head, casting spells about, and just literally murdering them almost instantly.
I kicked somebody's head off.
That was in that same scenario.
I was just going to say as well, I mean, in that exact instance, we're really good at working against each other. So myself and Pip, who isn't quite here yet, were fighting the zombies, and this guy decides to make a rope trap and cast grease, which did nothing other than trip us all up.
It was a really good idea.
What's the rhyme?
Grease, it's hard to beat. Oh no, I forgot the rest of it. They made me come up with rhymes for all of my spells, so if I cast, I have to come up with this rhyme. And usually I come up with it on the spot, and I cannot remember it at all to save my life right now.
Grease, grease.
It's hard to beat.
Yeah.
Something,
That's it, that's all I got. I can't remember
something-
anything else.
something
Neat.
treat.
Something neat.
Oh, slip and slide, go for a ride. Something about a treat.
Yeah.
And every time, it never impacts anybody we're trying to attack. It's always us. Always us.
Yeah. There was
One of these days, that rope traps were really gonna work.
one of the things that I did that I thought was super cool, because my character is very childlike. She thinks everything's hilarious when it's not. And Tim was setting the scene where I thought there was a big crowd of people, like a big sort of party or discotheque, if you will. And I thought I would slide down like an assassin and have a dagger in both hands and like crawl across the floor, aiming to hurt people. And then when he described the scene, the party was over there. So I was being an assassin in the open floor space on the other side. But I think I'm still cool with daggers.
I think you're cool too.
Thanks.
Yeah. That,
Thanks, Johnny.
I sort of witnessed to a bit of this as you sort of crawled your way, what was it, about 60 foot across the floor towards these intended victims?
I think it was more like about 100 yards, just like in the open, it was in an open field, just crawling around on the. And
But I feel like, you know, D&D a lot it's you're rolling dice. It's all about trial and error, you know, and sometimes you make an error in your die roll, and sometimes you make an error in starting your stealthy approach on the other side of the room. I think that's fair enough, really. But
It's the effort, right?
exactly. Now, so we've sort of casually mentioned that obviously the end of the world is coming. Somebody's playing as a literal angel. One of the characters is not only a serial killer, but is quite often being sick immediately after the fact. It feels like there's quite a lot going on in this campaign. How do all of you keep a track of it? Because you've all got pets as well, right? Like pretty much everyone has a pet. Is that right?
yeah, pretty much at this point.
Well, I've recently learned to conjure beasts, so taking full advantage of that. 2 bears at a time,
Yeah,
ripping people apart, it's fine.
Didn't you summon some octopuses too?
Yeah, we were in a situation with a five-headed dragon. Five-headed dragon and
Spoilers.
Yep. I summoned giant octopus, and it did nothing. Literally did nothing.
Maybe
and
if they had some rope, that could have helped.
rope and grease.
Rope and grease.
Fair. But yeah, like,
This is basically what our campaign's like.
So as you can see, they're not particularly great at keeping track of things.
Yeah, what was the question?
it was how do you keep track of things?
Oh yeah.
I'd say what's
Oh,
worse
wow.
than that is, can you raise your hand if you play D&D? Oh wow, everyone. Okay, can you raise your hand if you can count? See, we can't. That's probably worse than us keeping track. It's when Tim's like, oh, roll D20, and I'm like, 2, 6. You do the math. That's probably the worst thing about us is making Tim do the maths.
I think what's important is the fact that we fully accept we're amateurs at this. We have been playing for about 2 years solid though, so we shouldn't be as bad as we really are. But that's a secret, okay?
I mean,
Right.
I think that's partly just because you're also recording while doing it. There's a lot to think about. Like, am I banging on the table? Is that going to interfere with the mics? Am I speaking clearly? Are you just being aware that you're on camera can make it more difficult? I mean, my group, for example, we leveled them up fairly recently, and one of them finally plucked up the courage to ask me what the big number was on their stats and how that related to the plus or minus number. And I won't name names, but I wanted to pick them up by the ankles and shake them. So it's like, how did you get this far? But I guess it's just the nature of the beast in many ways. It's an interesting hobby.
That Tim actually, because Tim looks after us in every single way, made individual dice cheat sheets and laminated them because we kept asking him which dice was which 2 years on from playing. So that's how he keeps us straight.
I mean, while we're talking about dice, what is your favourite die? Because this is genuinely a question I've got really into asking people recently, because the answers are really genuinely quite interesting. So, what's your favourite die, everybody?
I like the D4, but the dice that I have, every time I go to reach for it, I accidentally stab my hand. But I really like the D4.
Easy one for me. It's a D12, the best dice of all.
Why?
Are you going to explain that?
Why?
No?
Come on, we're
I don't have to
amateurs.
explain
Tell us why.
myself.
It is the connoisseur's choice, in fairness. The D12 is also my favourite.
I'd say D20 because apart from the Monopoly dice, the D20 is the only one that I remember.
By Monopoly die, you mean the standard die, right?
What number's that?
D6.
Is that right?
Oh.
I don't know.
Mine's D8. It's satisfying, and you can spin it, and I like that. And roll over and die. Subscribe.
They're all die. Which is the one with all the hundreds on them?
Oh, the percentile.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
I keep asking for Tim to make an item that we can roll all of the same dice at the same time, but he's not done that yet.
It's coming. I've written it.
I'm excited.
Do we just need to get to that bit?
Yes.
I have to say, I personally, this is weird, but sod it, I've got the microphone. I'm suspicious of the D8. I don't trust it.
Why?
That's why you're on that sofa, maybe.
Stick with me on this one, because generally speaking, like, the easiest way to tell somebody what the die is, like, oh, I need a D8. It's like, just count the top half and double it, right? So with a D8, it's like, oh, there you go, 1, 2, 3, 4. So in my brain, I'm like, 4 sides? That's rubbish, because it's only going to fall onto one of those sides, and then you only get a choice of 1 in 4. So if I'm rolling a D6, I'm like, yes, good old D6, here we go. That's a proper die. Even though a D8 has a higher value range, just don't trust it.
But if you've got a dice tray that's sloped on the sides and you roll it, and you're not happy with that roll, you can technically say it's cocked. And you can't tell.
Just to change the subject before
haven't
he
done
goes into character, speaking of trust, one of the most loyal characters, Pip, she just disappeared.
Oh, hang on.
Ellie, so Ellie is our character
little
Pip.
Grimm
Ellie's going to
Ranger.
join
There you
us.
are.
She's running slightly late and we're going to embarrass her. Can we give her a round of applause, please?
Come here, Pep. Come up here.
I
She's-
think that was a natural 20 on a stealth check.
She
Little
can come
D&D
sit on the
joke
floor in the
for you there.
middle. Oh no.
Hurry
this
up,
is cozy.
come on. Run. Grung.
That'll make her feel nice and calm before getting up on the stage. Hello.
Round of applause.
Made it.
Come in, take a seat. Tell us about your character. Tell us about your favourite die.
What was that?
Tell us about yourself and your character.
Okay, so I play Pip. I'm a Grimm Ranger. What am I like? I'm
Pip
very
is
small.
mischievous.
Yeah, I cause a lot of problems, and it's very much like me in real life.
How big are you?
Probably about this big,
But you
which
also
is terrifying considering everyone else is about that big.
you have a habit of putting people to sleep as well.
Yeah, never high five
We
her.
don't need to
She'll
talk
send
about
you to
that.
sleep.
No?
Sorry, what?
Never high five her. She'll send you to sleep.
No, I heard you. I was hoping that you might provide a bit
I'm
of
not threatening you.
context.
It's just,
No, I mean,
Never.
I mean, calm down. He will murder you if you keep pushing him. Grungs have poison skin.
And Tim made the mistake of letting me pick what it did.
And I can confirm that was a mistake.
yeah, there's something about, I have a couple of players in the campaigns I run outside of work that just love sending things to sleep. It's annoying.
But handy.
I think our first introduction to her in the first episode, I'm not going to give too much away because if you haven't seen it, genuinely check it out, it'd be great. But it was the first point that we all met each other and we were being sent on a mission by our mayor and we needed volunteers. So I inadvertently got volunteered because of that man over there just wrestling me and taking me along. And then she crowd surfed, but as she crowd surfed, hadn't told people, or hadn't told us actually, that she put people to sleep. So as she was going along, just this steady flow of people just dropped.
It was a great introduction.
You never quite think until you have to deal with that situation how many times you'd like physically come in contact with other individuals. So like every single time she shakes someone's hand or someone like pats her on the shoulder, I'd think, oh well, that's another like Constitution saving throw for please.
That is excellent. I mean, at least, you know, it shows that you're playing things by the rules. Because
Yeah, true.
I'm not going to lie, my style as a Dungeons & Dragons GM is very fast and loose. I did 2 live shows last weekend, and I came off stage from one of them, and I just turned to the players and went, "We were barely playing D&D at the end there," because we were just shouting. But I've seen you GM, Tim, and you are definitely you know your stuff in a way that I definitely don't. So I have to say I really admire your commitment to those Constitution saving throws whenever Ellie's character touches someone.
Thanks. I really only kind of stick to them if I think it either serves the story or is going to be hilarious. Other than that, I'm not like a big rule stickler, and I think the most fun I have is when we're not actually adhering to any rules. These guys are just role-playing in the world and messing stuff up and accidentally killing people or befriending dogs or like getting new creatures and stuff like that. Yeah.
Tim is probably the most well-spoken person that we've ever met or will ever know ever in our entire lives. And those that do watch it or will go on to watch it will find that he likes to use really long words that we have to ask him what they mean. And what's his favourite? Is it undulating? Is his favourite word to use with everything.
I don't know why this became a thing. I think
Sorry.
I said it like twice. Apparently now that's my word of choice.
Yeah, and there are moments where he breaks. He to the point you're not crying so much. You're laughing. You're laughing so much you're crying. It's that way around, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
I mean, you give one enough time and it turns into the other. It's just kind of a circle. It depends how cruel you want to be, really, to your long-suffering dungeon master. But I had to say undulating as a word, pretty good, because it's slightly unnerving. Even if something is undulating in a good way. That even sounds suspicious in and of itself. It's like, it's undulating, I don't trust it.
The weirdest use, I think, was when we went into a dungeon and Tim said there were undulating walls that we were passing, and I was like, what does that mean?
We're simple folk. We're even simple but it doesn't have to be a long word. Svelte was one that came up, and mentioned no names. Sorry. Thought it meant felt. So rather than a svelte mushroom, she thought it was like a mushroom covered in felt.
It was also the swollen piano.
Yes.
Joanna
Joanna the piano.
The old Joanna.
Yeah.
I was going to say as well that my character has no memories, so when Pip tells me that svelte means felt, my character now believes that svelte means felt. That's a thing now.
Outstanding. Well, I think if you're up for it, we're going to open up some questions from the floor. But before then, how can people watch Roll Over and Die? And where can they follow you also?
So you can tune in to Roll Over and Die on YouTube, which is just pump Roll Over and Die into the old YouTube search bar and we'll be there, or youtube.com/Roll Over and Die. We can find myself as MCM_Tim on Twitter.
Annie_Squirrel.
I'm at Ellie Bath.
I'm at MCM Josh.
I'm at ALUCYE.
So every episode I make up a social handle, and they're all ridiculous. So I'll spare you all this time, but if you watch the show, every episode I have a new Twitter handle that you can find me on that I don't actually exist.
I will also say, sorry.
I was just going to say my favorite was Chatty Chatty Bang Bang.
At Chatty Chatty Bang Bang. Yeah.
They're all great. We also have a quick trailer if we want to push that through.
Am I on my phone?
Hey, that looks like us now.
You look so
So
miserable
professional.
in this, which is why it's hilarious.
That's
I think
my
you actually
mood.
tell us to shut up.
That's my mood when I'm not playing D&D.
Can we get bigger couches?
I can also confirm that's not a big sofa.
This always happens.
There we go.
That's it.
Are you right?
Just as far back. It's hard to say, what's going on over there?
No, just push it.
Tim's just thrusting at me now.
There we go. This is not weird.
Perfect.
100% not weird. We're some of the people from MCM Comic Con, and this is our new show, Roll Over and Die. So remember, you can catch us every Monday on our YouTube channel.
Tune in every week and we will just make complete and utter fools of ourselves for your entertainment.
You'll love it.
Sorry.
Lovely stuff. I do have to say as well, I was not joking. That room they record in is tiny. It's the same studio we use for like Eurogamer and Dicebreaker, and it's small enough when you're just 2 people. But when you're fitting in an entire D&D group, it's amazing. Like genuinely. The first time it got set up, I went in and asked for a tour. So I was like, this doesn't make sense. How have you folded this many human beings into one room? It's genuinely impressive. So well done for that.
So if you have any questions, I'm going to run around with this mic, and you can distract everyone else.
Sure. I have to say, everyone's wearing lovely Dicebreaker t-shirts, by the way. You can get the Wood for Sheep ones if you're Settlers of Catan fans over at the where they're printing t-shirts bit, which I don't know where it is.
It's at the MCM official store.
That would be the one.
Down that way. Down that way.
Yeah.
Hello. What was your biggest domino effect of epic fails, and Tim, what was your reaction to it? It doesn't have to be a roll over and die, just any campaign that you've done.
Sure. I mean, I can react to if you know what your most epic fail was. I know what it was, but I would be interested to hear what you think it was.
I know what mine was. It wasn't this campaign.
Oh, fair enough.
I was... or was it? Actually, no, I've had a lot. Mine's turning my pirate deep gnome into a one-legged deep gnome by inadvertently managing to stab myself in my leg, freezing it, breaking it off myself just because I wanted to become a pirate. Sounds cooler than it was. Truth is, I was actually trying to attack somebody else and I slipped over, stabbed my leg, and I was just able to hop up and down for the rest of that fight.
Mine has to be in this campaign. He told me to eat one of the mushrooms. He told me they were delicious. So I did. I took it at face value. I ate a hallucinogenic mushroom, and my character was high for the rest of the episode.
Yeah, I think that one of the things I remember from our first campaign was that I can't remember the situation, but I had a friend. What was the character? Jeffrey. Do you remember what he was?
Oh, he was Quaggoth.
A Quaggoth. Thanks, Tim. And I can't remember what we were doing, but he died. And this was my first campaign, and I was heartbroken, and I looked at Tim, and I think I just swore so much at your face, and I just had his character sheet, and I just tore it up in a million pieces, and I was like, screw you, Tim! And he's like, I wish you hadn't have done that. He came back later on, so I had to sellotape the whole sheet back together. But yeah, that was probably me self-sabotaging.
Yeah.
I tried to woo an orc who was a barmaid, and it ended up working out, which I didn't expect it to happen, so I just froze and left. I ran out of the room really quick, and I feel like I haven't seen the last of her. I hope she's okay.
That's probably one of the most awkward moments in our campaign to date as well, because you could just tell that you did not expect it to happen.
I had no idea that the orc was into lizards. Who knew? Not me.
Yeah, and pretty much my reaction to all of those things was, okay, sure. But I think the most epic fail I can remember off the top of my head, which involved you guys, was we've already said about the house on the farm and your love of trapping. So he threaded a rope across about sort of shin height, and then cast grease on the floor, thinking, oh, when these zombies run out, perfect trap. Unfortunately, instead, Parter ran out, failed his perception check, face first, zombie on top, another zombie on top, and then Mike on top.
Parter sandwich.
Yeah, and then you corpse angeled, which is a thing that she does.
But it didn't stop there, Tim. It didn't stop there.
No, it didn't.
I then shapeshifted into a workhorse.
Yeah.
Forgot I was on grease. Tried to go back into the house. Slipped. I think I ended up just flailing around for about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Chad was just laughing.
That's when I kicked the head.
Yeah, it's nothing quite as sad as a visual of a horse trying to stand up on a big patch of grease.
Fair enough. I once had a character who had built a bomb because they were going to go blow up an installation of some kind, set the bomb, realized it was no longer needed, tried to defuse the bomb, blew up, died. It was not great. It was a blaze of inglory, I guess. But thank you so much for your question. Any others?
Hi, just want to say absolutely love the Oxventures and looking forward to trying Roll Over and Die.
Is the right answer.
Do you have any tips for a fairly new DM in making a homebrew campaign?
I feel like, Tim, you've done a lot more homebrew than I have.
Don't. But no, seriously though, is don't worry the small stuff. Like right at the beginning, I really sort of fell down a hole of like, how many days should there be in the year? 360 sounds nice. Does that mean the world is smaller? I've probably researched how large the Earth is, and then how often no. So yeah, don't go that far. Like sketch out kind of just like little bits and pieces that you want your characters to start in, and then just kind of expand it from there, and kind of let your players sort of fill in the rest as well. That would be my number one advice, I think.
Yeah, I think leaving space for the players to fill in the gaps is a really nice way of doing it. Because if they come up with questions like, why is this the way it is? You can often sort of turn back to them and be like, "Man, I hadn't really thought about it. Let's work it out together," you know. And I think it's more important to have a feel for the overall sense of the campaign than to know every single last detail about it, if that makes sense. Basically, my mantra is that they can't spoil your plan if you don't have a plan to begin with. So just stick to that, and to be honest, half the time they won't know you're just making it up on the fly. I hope that helps anyway.
That is excellent answers. Also, cheeky thing, could I possibly have a hug at the end?
A hug at the end? Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
This is all right. I don't have any coupons, but I'll give you a hug.
Gentleman in the cape.
So, I love the Oxventure and Roll Over and Die. I'm a business student studying college at the moment, doing economics and marketing. So I was just wondering how that links. Do you link your jobs with D&D?
Yeah, I mean, to us, this is very much a part of our role here. This is something that we play in our spare time anyway. But Roll Over and Die is sort of an amalgamation of our hobbies with our professions. So we're all obviously putting on shows like this, but this content is sort of to show that we just love D&D, and that we want to get that across to everyone that we're fans as well. So showing you guys that we're playing and having everyone along with the adventure is definitely part of marketing as much as anything else. So this is our job and our life.
My job here is to put content on stages. I've put us on stage. I'm doing my job.
I was just going to say as well, like Tim is our graphic designer as well as our DM, so all of the amazing assets, they're all Tim.
They do look really good, in fairness.
I was just going to say as well, I think the creativity that it can spark, I think for us, this grew out of, like you said, a hobby for us. It's something that we organically have decided, we want to do this. And thankfully, we've got the facilities at the office that we can record in a studio. So it came genuinely from us, and we've been allowed to do it, put it out there, hopefully for people to enjoy. But it's something that I think it brings in the other side of everything we're doing here. All the stresses of putting an event on, making sure it's right for you guys. Actually, this brings it back home to us of what would interest us, what can we do that we would get a buzz out of, and how can that resonate with you guys. So I think that's how, for me, that's how I see it. It's something that if we enjoy it, we hope other people will enjoy it. And thanks to Tim and the campaign that he's created, genuinely, we absolutely love when we're doing this and when we're recording it. And it is ridiculous. It takes long hours sometimes when we're recording and we're doing back-to-back and we go a little bit delirious, but I think that adds to it. So, yeah, it's good.
Speaking of work, I have to leave.
You're not allowed.
I'm sorry. I have other stages to put stuff on.
Round of applause for Mike, Annie.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for joining us. Oh my God, we've got elbow room.
You guys ready for the next question? Let's go over here.
So I run a game for a group of friends. They're all a little bit crazy too, but the difference is we're all teenagers, so it's kind of it's hard to calm them down. Sorry.
Right. Eat it like an ice cream.
Yeah, it's hard. and also finding time in between schools. So we have kind of less time to like calm down and focus on the game, which everyone wants to do, but so I was just wondering, are there any like ways to make sure that everyone's concentrating without being kind of annoying? Because like, I end up being annoying. I'm like, okay, I get it, you want to do other stuff, but we're here to play D&D, and we set out like 4 hours on the weekend that none of us have to play D&D, and no one's doing it, so.
For anyone in the back who couldn't quite hear that, the question was, if I'm rephrasing this correctly, it's how to make sure that people sort of, when you're limited on time to play each week, how you can get into the action and not just be distracted early on and that kind of thing. Is that a fair representation of the question? Personally, I would say, for one thing, something I've always done in the campaigns I've run is we have a recap of the last session at the top. So it's like, all right, what did we do last week? Getting everyone to be like, well, we did this and we did this. Oh, and you did that. That was awesome. And I was so annoyed when this happened, blah, 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 blah. It gets them back into the headspace really, really quickly. And I find that it just means that when they get started, they're already thinking as their characters, and you've got a bit of momentum. Also, as a GM, I really like sending things to people in between sessions, whether that's like a note or just a thing, me like, you dream of this or something. The more people turn up and they're not like, where did I leave my Doritos? Blah, da, da, da. Who wants a drink? The more prep you can do to get them in the headspace before they arrive, and to get yourself in that headspace as well, like whether it's like a hat that you always wear when you're playing a character, or looking back over your notes or anything like that, just trying to get people into the headspace in their own time, so that when you sit down and know that it's like, it's obviously, you know, D&D's not like work, but it's business time, you know, and it is a limited thing that you only get to do every so often. So yeah, getting people into it before they actually sit down, I think is really important, for me anyway.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely a really good idea. Like, sending little notes in between sessions is a really good idea, I think. Back in the day, when I used to play with another set of people, we used to like email chain, which again, yeah, helps you get into that role even outside of the session. So when they're coming, they're like, oh, I really want to like find out how this affects the in-game thing. Another thing that I do personally is when we play homebrew campaigns, get everybody, as soon as they sit down at the table, we're ready to play, everybody's phones go in a phone bin, and then I take that away. Because I feel like it's quite a bit of a distraction with the phone. So fortunately, I play with people that are willing for me to take all of their electronic devices from them. So bonus.
There's also some other like tricks that you pull on us just to keep us, although we are always going off on a tangent and taking little side quests here and there, you're really good at subtly closing down the options when we're going distracted, like going sideways or getting distracted by small little things. He'll go along with it, but then he'll just clamp down the options, so actually you suddenly realise it's pointless, you're not going anywhere, so you turn back onto the track. So I think that's something that Tim's done really well with us, is he corrals you, so it's that subtle control without going, no, you're not going down there because you've got to do this.
Awesome. We have time for one more question.
Sonic.
No
Sonic.
pressure. Sonic. Okay.
Who would you say are your favourite or most memorable NPCs that you've encountered?
I'd have to say the army of 60 skeletons that pop out of a hammer whenever it's touched from the Oxventure. They're kind of my favourite, because I made them solely to mess with my players, and they kept them around, and now they are in a really horrible, weird way part of the team. But I'll be honest with you, I think making memorable NPCs is quite difficult. We're doing it straight down the line. Like, every memorable NPC I've had, apart from the skeletons, has been memorable because my players have done something terrible to them. Like, whether that's shoving them in a papoose until they've just become a literal baby, or whatever. Especially if they're antagonists, that for me is the hardest thing, is to make a character that they believe in, that they dislike, but that they won't just immediately kill. Because trying to convince a D&D group that like an adversary is worth having because it helps define them as a group of adventurers just doesn't fly, because they can just use magic to kill them. So it's a difficult balancing act, and it is one that I am still very much learning. But TLDR, skeletons in a hammer.
We do this really terrible thing to Tim when he comes up with a good NPC with a good voice, and it's just not leave them alone, basically, which means that Tim spends the entire time doing the voice. And so I would like Tim to demonstrate Napna for you.
Thank you very much for that. So a little bit of context for Napna. He's a gnomish inventor, which I didn't really expect them to find so early or spend quite so much time with. And so really inadvisedly made a very squeaky voice, which doesn't really fit my timbre. It's not Napna! It's still not Napna! Yeah.
The hardest thing is not understanding what you're saying, but you're like,
oh yeah. Not more. Yeah.
Thank you.
One of the dogs we encountered, it was a Chihuahua, and it pulled a knife on Josh, so I really like that.
The other thing is, though, I'm 7'4" with a very long arm span, so technically all I needed to do was... But in the moment, I didn't realise I could do it.
I think
so
the episode ended with the Chihuahua holding the knife to your throat.
Yeah.
We also realized halfway through that Josh was the only one who had speak to animals. So the entire time he was just barking at a dog, and we had no idea what was going on. It was really good.
Outstanding. Well, I think that's all we have time for. So just as a recap, you can find Rollover and Die at youtube.com/rollover and die. You can find me on youtube.com/Dicebreaker. It's a new channel. Please, for the love of God, subscribe.
It's amazing. Honestly, it's amazing. Do subscribe.
Oh, thank you.
And also, do you want to talk about the panel on Saturday?
Yes. I can't remember what time it is.
The very end of the day.
At the very end of the day tomorrow, I will be running the biggest game of code names you've ever seen, probably.
If you download the app, you can find the time, you can schedule it, and on the show guide as well.
To do that.
We also have pin badges to give out, so if you guys would like some, we're giving them out over there.
And don't forget to head over to the merch stand and pick up these amazing t-shirts. Thank you, Johnny.
Thank you.
No, and thank you so much, and thank you all for watching. Can we have another big round of applause for the Rollover and Die team, please?
If you want a pin badge, come and find us after this, and they're free, so come get one.
Thanks.
Enjoy the rest of the show.
Just